Hello and welcome to Double Feature, the internet movie review show where a horror whore and an anime addict swap films to persuade each other about our respective genres. I'm Mike.
I'm Alan.
And Double Feature is something which has appeared for a long time on Area Shifty Bun, which is our first YouTube channel. If you're watching there, hello. It's nice to see you. It's been about 2 years since we've done an episode of this, but it's good to be back. You may also be watching this on the Ghastly Tales YouTube channel, which is our horror channel where we are doing a lot of different videos more often right now, regularly than we are on Area Shifty Bun, but we're keeping both channels going as best we can. So, anyway,
I'm not going to lie, there was a little part of me that always thought we would never get back to doing these, but you know, here we are.
It's my fault. You just go on and say it. No, you can say it. You can say it. It's been 2 years.
Water under the bridge, man.
So, as I said, we swap films. So I give Alan an anime. No, that's the wrong round. I give Alan.
It works the other way around.
I give Alan.
Someday.
Yes, I give Alan a horror film, and he gives me an anime film, and we both give our thoughts on it. Okay, so I gave you.
Well, you say you gave me this one, but I think this was actually a request from Patimus way back in the days when you were played by John Pertwee and I was played by Tom Baker. So, you know, I could be wrong about that.
Well, but I do know that she requested it. She did recommend it because I remember I did a review of it.
Right.
So, okay. I can't remember if it was for Double Feature or...
Right. Well, yeah.
We're going to
do it. No, it'll be fine. We'll cut it or something.
Shut up, Callum.
But yeah, basically the film that I have been introduced to this time was Castle Freak, which is a film that I went into knowing absolutely nothing about. And, you know, to that end, I would actually like to begin by reading some of the IMDb keywords for this film, just to give you a flavour of, you know, what I presumed it was going to be about. We have castle, fair enough. Prostitutes.
That's its alternative title. Castle Prostitute.
It's a very different film. Freak. Voyeurism. And
nice.
Hitting the crotch.
Hitting the crotch?
Hitting the crotch. That was an IMDb key phrase for this film.
So prostitute, hitting the crotch, voyeurism.
Yeah, there's some kind of sadomasochistic theme going on there already.
I think that's a genre of porn.
It probably is, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
So what did you make of this film?
Well, I mean, initially I, went into expecting something, I don't know, Castle was in the title, thought, it was going to be like Castlevania. What is a man? But it was a film of pleasant surprises, I think, all the way through. I mean, the film stars Jeffrey Combs as an American intellectual academic who suddenly finds out that he's inherited this old castle in Italy, and he takes his family there to dispose of basically they just want to see the back of it as quick as possible, dispose of the contents in the castle, get it sold, move on. And, they arrive, and despite their apparent enthusiasm for their new surroundings, it all is not as well as it seems, because in the past there has been some kind of an accident which Jeffrey Combs' wife, played by Barbara Crampton, I want to say, I checked her name and I already forgot.
Crapton. Her name's Barbara Crapton. I bet she hasn't heard that joke before.
Oh, poor Barbara. Anyway, who blames Jeffrey Combs' character for this accident which has blinded their young daughter. But anyway, they get to the castle, and they, as much as they're quite impressed with the place when they come upon it at first, they soon find that they're not alone, that there is a mysterious figure dwelling within the bowels of the castle, and without its previous owner there to keep it in check, its murderous nature is starting to come to the fore. And, well, yeah, I mean, I think that's probably about as much as you can say without really spoiling it.
It's the freak in the castle.
Yeah, you see what they did there.
The title is quite literal.
Well, at least it's not one of these films where they turn up and say, oh, geez, do you think maybe there's a freak in this castle?
Yeah, oh, Jesus. So, did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I mean, I was very pleasantly surprised by it. I didn't actually realise going into it that this was a film by Stuart Gordon, as much as it has all the hallmarks, because I mean it has Jeffrey Combs that most people are going to know from Reanimator, and Barbara Crampton, who was also in Reanimator as well.
And Jeffrey Combs was in From Beyond as well.
Oh right, yeah, which is another Stuart Gordon film. I really should have known the hallmark, but I didn't realise that going in. And yeah, I mean, I was very taken with it. I mean, it's got a very good cast to it, and I mean, you know, even just away from like the recognisable names, I was greatly amused by the presence later on of Luca Zingarelli.
Just get the names wrong, it's fine. I have to do all the anime films and I have to get the Japanese names.
Luca Zingaretti, who turns up later on playing this dodgy desk sergeant. And this amused me because, I mean, if there are any avid viewers of BBC4 out there, they will recognise Luca Zingaretti as Inspector Montalbano, this kind of foodie detective in an Italian series that plays on that channel quite a lot. So I got quite a kick out of seeing him there as a desk sergeant, because it was a little bit like seeing, you know, Montalbano the early years in a way. But yeah, I mean, it's there's not, I would say, a massive amount to it or anything, but I think it's a slightly more kind of sophisticated film than I was originally given it credit for. I mean, it never really rises above kind of the level of the B picture, but it does what it does quite well. I mean, I think it's nice to see Coombs tackling a slightly more kind of complicated character than he would get, you know, from Reanimator or that.
He's a very complicated character.
He has a very interesting character arc in this film. I mean, I quite like the journey of his character. You know, there's a kind of there's obviously a kind of resentment that kind of wells up in him, and I mean, I think it's probably not a huge spoiler to say that I think this is reflected in the monster. I mean, I think it's probably one of the hilariously unsubtle bits of metaphor that the monster kind of symbolises something that's within him, not just like the kind of anger and self-loathing, I guess, that having hurt his own family, but also maybe a kind of sexual urge, because he does quite memorably get it up with an impossibly glamorous prostitute at one point in the film, which is probably why that's
possibly glamorous prostitute. That's a genre of prostitute as well. You can contact.
Genre of prostitute, jeez. But I mean, one thing that did surprise me about this was that it was a direct-to-video production. I mean, how do you feel about this being DTV? I mean,
it's been a while since I read about the film, but I do remember hearing that about I think how it got funded as well. Excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat. Stuart Gordon, I think, is a really interesting director. He's never really dropped the ball from the films that I've watched. Like, I'm not saying he always hits amazing heights, but it's interesting that he went down that sort of medium.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, kind of, he's maybe one of these guys that he's never really achieved the kind of mainstream success that perhaps, you know, he would have been due. Really, I think it's interesting that you know, you could maybe apply that a little bit to Coombs as an actor as well. I mean, I can see why a lot of people kind of liken him to Bruce Campbell, and you know, one of these guys that's become
Callum's
kind of
playing with his phone off camera.
At least it's only his phone.
Well, that's in one hand. Sorry.
Moving swiftly on, but yeah, I mean, how did you find the film in general? I mean, you know,
I really enjoyed it. Like I say, I remember I did a review a few years ago on it, and what's interesting about it is it's the jumping off point is an H.P. Lovecraft story, The Outsider, and that's what's interesting about it is that it has almost no similarities to that story.
There isn't a castle and there isn't a free.
There's one moment, and this is kind of ruining the story of The Outsider for people that haven't read it, but there's one moment where the creature looks in a mirror.
Oh, right.
And that's essentially the only moment from the entire story that's taken. But it's quite interesting to see how someone can take a famous story and just develop it to the point where it's almost unrecognisable.
Yeah.
Like you say, Jeffrey Combs, I think he's very much like Bruce Campbell in that Hollywood kind of missed the boat with him as an actor. He's got a great presence, he's got a quirky presence as well. And whenever you see him on screen, I know he did some stuff on Star Trek. He had a great role in The Frighteners as well.
Was he in Babylon 5?
Not that I remember.
I'm maybe thinking of Star Trek.
He could have been. Don't mix up Babylon 5 and Star Trek, Alan, for God's sake.
Sorry, we've already lost subscribers.
What's interesting about the film is that it's really grim. It's very, very dark, and it doesn't really have any light to it. It kind of has this backstory about this terrible event that's happened to this family. They're trying to get over it, and they come to this castle that they've sort of inherited. They want to get rid of it, but it has this horrible secret, and then there's all these murders that take place, and the father hires a prostitute at one point. It just keeps going on and on and on and down and down and down the hole we go. So it's interesting from that point of view. Like I say, Stuart Gordon, he's a very, very capable director, reanimator, Stuck, Day Gone, From Beyond. He's done a lot of good films, you know. So I enjoyed it. I don't think it's quite a classic.
Yeah.
What is a little bit special about it in some ways is that it has that sort of Italian feel. Obviously because it's set in Italy, but it actually has the feel of an Italian horror film as well.
You could see it being one of those kind of pictures like from below. I mean, I know that I guess this was like 95 it came out, and I mean you could kind of see it as one of those things made in Italy in kind of the late 70s or early 80s.
Absolutely, but it's definitely worth a watch.
The only thing I think is a slight warning is don't look at the box art. Because it gives away what the creature looks like, and I think the film does quite a good job of sort of keeping that from you until quite a ways into the film.
It must drive filmmakers absolutely nuts though, especially with trailers, but even with promotional materials like the DVD covers, video covers, posters and things. If something that they've intended to keep
it's
obscured,
just spoiled it, and I mean, I think I couldn't absolutely swear to it. I know there is an alternative poster for this film, which I think is on the cover of the UK Blu-ray release, but I couldn't absolutely be sure of that, so I don't know if I get that wrong. We can put a notice up here saying, you know,
I'm wrong.
Yeah,
I must go in the corner. I must go in the corner and wear a Dunce's hat. Well, I think, is there anything else you want to say about Castle
No, I think that rounds it up pretty well. Yeah, I greatly enjoyed it. You know, pleasant surprise. Yeah.
Yes, and now we will have an intermission. Welcome back. Did you enjoy that intermission? I enjoyed it.
I know we did, yeah.
Did you enjoy it?
Oh, yes.
That sounds actually dodgy. That sounds...
Yeah.
All we did is we got a little drink. Okay? That's all we did in this rather amusing glass in Callum's flat. Anyway, so the film you gave me...
The film I gave to Mike this time was The Secret of Mamo, which I believe may also have been a request from somebody, but I'm sorry, I can't remember.
It was 2 years ago since we made this video, so I think that's fair enough. That's okay.
But I mean, I was interested to give you this one as well, because I think the first one of these we ever did was The Castle of Cagliostro.
I love that film.
Still one of my favourites. So, I'll be interested to know, what did you make of this one?
So I'm going to try and get through this. For regular,
that's why Mike is drinking.
Yes, for regular viewers of Double Feature, you'll know that I have a problem doing the synopses for anime films, because normally they're a little bit quirky. Or batshit crazy, as we've said in some instances. Yeah. So, Secret of Mamo, also known as Mystery of Mamo, and Lupin the Third versus the Clones, which kind of gives the spoiler. Gives it away. I know, but why would they call it that?
That was a later title they applied
was
to
it
in the 1980s.
After you watch it?
Well,
the title changes to that.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think from early on, you know that's where it's going, and I'll get to it. Anyway, so the Secret of Mamo follows Lupin the Third, who is the world's sort of master thief. We've watched Castle of Cagliostro, which I really, really enjoyed. It was a great adventure film, and Secret of Mamo is a sort of adventure science fiction comedy film as well. The dub that I watched, we think, was the more recent dub.
I think it was the genuine one, yeah.
Yeah, I watched it on Hulu. I know I'm in Britain. How did I do that? It's magic. So whatever dub that is on that was the one I watched. But I actually quite enjoyed the dub. I thought it was quite good. So Secret of Mamo starts off with the announcement that Lupin III has been executed. I'm not making this up. His arch nemesis, Inspector Zenigata, who is always trying to chase Lupin III down to arrest him, doesn't quite believe that he's dead and wants to verify it. So he travels to Castle Dracula, I'm not making this up, to verify that it is indeed Lupin's body. When he gets there, he realises, and we as the audience realise, because we see Lupin himself, that he's actually well and alive. However, it is mentioned at this point, and that's why I think fairly early on, that he says that whoever was executed had the same DNA as Lupin. So either you're thinking twin, or
Yeah, I guess you would
triplet,
get there.
or
You would get
So
there pretty quickly.
you're thinking clones, aren't you? Really, and this is where the science fiction element kind of comes in. Anyway, so Lupin with his sidekicks, and I'm going to try and pronounce this. Goemon,
Yep.
Jigen.
Jigen. Yeah.
You say Jagan, I say
Jagan.
Jagan. Let's call the whole thing off.
Hey.
He's trying to steal the Philosopher's Stone, which is the fabled artifact which is supposed to give you eternal life. And we find out that he has been approached to do this by a female character called Fujiko.
Fujiko. Yep.
Fujika's that's almost the manufacturer of a camera.
Yeah.
Callum's laughing. I never get the names right. I never get the names right, so I do apologise. Probably anime fans out there are like that. So the character Fujiko has tried to get Lupin and his crew to get their hands on the Philosopher's Stone, and we find out that she herself has been put up to this by a character called Mamo, who is the title of the film. And Mamo himself is this super rich billionaire.
Kind of a Howard Hughes kind of figure.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels between him and the North Korean regime, which I found really quite interesting when I watched it. The fact that this film was made in 1978.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that in a little bit. But Mamo has tried to get his hands on the Philosopher's Stone, and he's obsessed with eternal life. And that's probably as far as we should go. But it's an adventure film. It veers drastically into science fiction, which I believe a lot of fans of Lupin maybe thought it gets a bit crazy. Like, I don't want to ruin it. At some point, there's a floating brain, right? There's a floating brain
Can
in
we
this
just
film.
bleep that out?
Right. There's a floating brain. That's not... You don't know what that is?
I suppose, yeah.
Do
You
you
don't
know
know
what
the
that is?
context. You don't know the context.
There's a floating brain. So, essentially, the film veers off in a very sort of science fiction direction.
I think maybe why people are bothered by this is that it only comes in really in the third act. I mean, for the first 2/3, it's more got a kind of spy-fi, kind of psychedelic kind of quality to it, and then it's only really in the third act that we kind of get into science fiction kind of territory, and which I guess, maybe not that surprising. It came out in '78. I mean, Star Wars time.
As someone who goes into, because anime was never sort of my thing, I'm going into these films quite cold, except for the fact that I've seen Castle Cagliostro, which follows the same characters. But it didn't really bother me all that much. I kind of enjoyed the quirkiness.
Yeah, I mean,
almost.
Personally, it's never bothered me either, because I mean, I don't know if it's maybe because one of the first James Bond films I can ever remember seeing as a kid was Moonraker. So I mean, I think I mean, when you get the science fiction comes into it, you just think, fair enough.
But it's the film is a good sort of adventure romp. The animation I felt was very patchy. Like sometimes I really enjoyed it, and then there was other times where I just wasn't as enamored by it. Just it was strange. It seemed a little bit uneven to me. Like I say, sometimes it was very good. Sometimes I felt it was a little bit. It felt a little bit patchy, like sort of repeated frames and things like that.
I mean, for its time, this was, I think, actually the highest budgeted animated film
I've
ever been.
That's what you're saying.
No, I'm just no. I mean, you can take that away from it, fair enough. But no, it was. I think it was the highest budgeted animated film that I think certainly in Japan. Maybe not worldwide, but certainly for Japan at the time, most expensive one they'd ever made. And I think it's also the oldest anime film that we've ever looked at on double feature by about a year. I think this is.
What was the next?
Well, it'd probably be either Cagliostro or Galaxy Express, which I think were both 79.
Right. Well, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I read a lot about it after watching it, and I realised that it's quite a divisive film.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who aren't keen on it at all, especially people who are a fan of the sort of Lupin franchise. But what I was interested in, because obviously that's me watched two films now. Never watched any of the TV series. I've never read any of it was an original manga, wasn't it?
This isn't.
But it's got a
direct adaptation.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to say. Was that what I read? Is that the manga is it much more serious than the film?
Not serious, I would say. I think it's just a sort of darker and more. I think there's more like adult situations in it. You might say than.
There's some ridiculous nudity in this film, which made me laugh again, because sometimes you feel watching some of these films that this is like a teenage boy's fantasy.
Well, the interesting thing is, I think
Fujiko. It's Fujiko when she's naked.
Fujiko.
I know, that was a joke. That was a joke. Sorry.
These things were lost on me.
So Fujiko was naked.
But what?
You're just thinking. You're
thought.
Thinking of the anime crowd, aren't you? And you're thinking, you know how much they love some of these things, and for someone to come along and just be like, "I like that Fujiko, she's good." That you know that I'm going to get crucified for that.
Sorry to interject, but like saying, "Oh, do you not love Pinhead and how?"
That's all right. I would let that go.
Oh god. I've completely forgotten what I was going to say.
What did you think of the film?
Well, I mean, I really like this one, but it took me a little while to get to that stage. I mean, what I was going to ask you as well was, what did you think about the change in tone between this and Cagliostro? Because, I mean, Cagliostro was very much a more kind of family-friendly kind of film, whereas this really isn't.
Yeah, I think what I liked, or loved actually, about Cagliostro was the fact that it had a real Spielberg feel to it, and I know a lot of people say that he was possibly influenced by the film after the fact.
Yeah, it's never been.
But it's never been proven. But some people
it's possible. It could have
suggest that that's a possibility. No, Cal. What is it?
Is it not Steven Spielberg that gave? Was it Cagliostro you gave a standing ovation to at Cannes?
I don't know.
On his own?
No, one of the Lupin films, he stood up and started clapping during the chase scene. What's the chase scene with the red car and the...
That's the one that he's alleged to have really praised, but I don't know. I think there's some dispute as to whether that...
Apparently jumped up in Cannes and started saying it was the best chase scene he'd ever seen.
I don't know. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying I don't know if that definitely
in
did
any
happen
case,
yeah.
I really loved the tone of Cagliostro. It was fun, it was adventurous, it was everything that I kind of liked about the sort of early 80s sort of time period, late 70s, early 80s time period. Mamo feels... It feels actually in some ways that it's a film that doesn't really know what it wants to be. You know, it's got a lot in there. And I would say as well, the character of Mamo, I was saying that there's there are parallels with North Korea.
I was interested to know where you were going with that.
Yeah, this character who is completely surrounded in this bubble.
Yeah.
He has a very skewed look at the world. He's almost like an old time dictator in some ways. That's the way Mamo feels to me. So in some ways the film is actually more relevant than Cagliostro, but interestingly as well, as a horror fan, there's a moment in this film that is really frightening, and I thought it was...
Is it a spoiler to discuss?
Particularly done well, and it's when I'll not name who it is, but there's a character and it involves fire. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh right, yeah.
And it's really well done, and I actually thought it was really unnerving.
Yeah,
it goes on for quite a while.
Yeah. I mean that is something that I was particularly impressed with this one. I think some of the imagery that it gets across is quite. It's. I think for me it kind of comes alive more in the second half in a way. I think for the first while it plays out a bit closer to kind of standard Lupin kind of caper film, but I think as it goes on it gets kind of progressively stranger, and you start getting these kind of weird, surreal images. I mean, like I really like the design of Mamo's island lair. You know, I think there's literally a scene in it where Lupin runs through a Dali painting. You know, it's got that kind of weird edge.
It does become surreal and like you say, psychedelic as the film goes on. But yeah, like I didn't mind that change. For me, Cagliostro is a much better film. It's much more well-rounded, and I found it much more enjoyable. But I still really enjoyed this, and it's one thing that is it's done has made me think that I'd really like now to look at the rest of the franchise in terms of the television.
Absolutely. I mean, there's certainly other things that we could look at as part of this strand if you want as well. So.
The funny thing is that Lupin as a character is one that in both films that I've seen, there's been moments where I've been watching and I was thinking I really like this character, and other times I'm like, this guy's annoying.
Yeah.
You know, he straddles that line.
Yeah.
But no, well worth a watch, I think, and I would say to people who maybe judge it harshly because of the right turn it takes rather than a left at one point, that I think just go with it and enjoy it, because it's sort of larger than life really by the end of the film.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I saw this film, I actually didn't like it. I mean, I think the reason for that being that I was really expecting another thing kind of in the same tone and style as the Castle of Cagliostro, and I really wasn't prepared for this at all. But I think it's one of the anime films I was actually quite quick to revisit. It wasn't that long before I kind of thought, well, actually, there's a lot to appreciate in this one, and I did come back to it relatively quickly. And I mean, I really grew to like this, and I would say that after Cagliostro, I feel this is probably the best of the rest of the Lupin films, yeah.
The interesting thing is that the director, and I'm going to try and get his name right, let's try this, Soji Yoshikawa?
Yoshikawa, yeah.
I nearly got it right. He was involved as a writer in the Mysterious Cities of Gold.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And when we first did Double Feature, that, you know, you were kind of like, what's your experience with anime? You know, I had almost none. I'd seen little bits of Akira when I was younger, and that was almost it, but I always remembered the Mysterious Cities of Gold. Yeah, and because one of the films that we watched as well, actually that was one that I'd seen a little bit of Castle in the Sky.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing that.
Laputa. But yeah, so I would recommend Mamo. I would definitely say to people, watch Cagliostro first, because especially if you're someone who thinks I'm not going to really enjoy an anime movie, Castle of Cagliostro is definitely a great first place to start. And with The Secret of Mamo, just don't expect more of the same.
If you want to see the other side of the coin, effectively, this is it. Yeah, I think this is you know, people talk about Lupin being kind of divided into two kind of routes with it. You know, there's the version of him created by Miyazaki and Takahata, and then there is this version which is kind of closer to the way it originally was in the manga. And you know, if you want to see like kind of the main points, if you will, of what that version is like, this is the way to do it, I would say. Yeah.
Well, I have to say I have thoroughly enjoyed being back doing a double feature again.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And I am so sorry it's taken 2 years for.
Should we ask for further recommendations?
Yeah, absolutely. If there are any horror films or any anime films that you would like us to review on the show, please do leave a comment below. Check out the Facebook page and all that good stuff down there as well. And remember to hit the subscribe button regardless of what channel you're watching this on. So for now, we will say goodbye.
Oh, I was worried how we were going to end that there, but yes, goodbye.
And we will be back soon, definitely. It won't be 2 years because we've got a whole schedule.
There's actually a kind of a lost episode from when we were doing these before that I never put up. So you know,
I was going to say that. What happened with that? What were the two films we did again? Was that
Red Line and The Devil Rides Out, I believe. Yeah.
I thought that.
So yeah,
I thought that.
So yeah, look out for that as well.
And also, I mean, I don't know if at some point we might double post some of the old episodes on Ghastly Tales. We've not decided yet. We might not do it, but we'll see what happens. So check out the Facebook page and all that good stuff. Hit subscribe, and we will be back again soon.
Like, obey, you know. I can't remember what the other words in They Live were. Obey.
I don't know. Yeah. Just do a freeze frame. Watch. Kang hit a Kanga. Kang.
I'm frozen.
You're not frozen.